What is going on? Welcome back to the Table Podcast. I am so excited that you are here. If you do not know me, my name is Briana Pierrette, but if you do, I'm glad that you're back. Let's dive into this. We are getting into how lack mindset really does mirror back to you through your connections. If you are subscribed, which you should be, like if you're not, what are you doing? But if you're subscribed, if you've been keeping up with the podcast, if you've been keeping up with everything, you know there are two main things that I be talking about, two philosophies that I'm consistently talking about, which is how lack is the first step to abundance and how literally being authentic is the revolution to having great relationships, true, genuine connections, right? So this podcast is really about understanding what we bring to the table, but not in the way that we're constantly looking at it, not from a surface level, but actually from a deeper level so that we can have better connections and relationships with ourselves in order for us to have better connections and relationships with people. And the one thing that I know is that connections and lack mindset really do go hand in hand, right? Last week, we really spoke to mirroring and understanding mirroring. So if you have not watched last week's podcast episode, go do that for me. Go do that for me. All right, go check it out. Okay. But if you have, you're up to date. So let's dive into this, right? I actually wrote this down because I'm like, this is something that I want you to keep in mind, okay? Hiding your imperfections lead to inauthenticity, and inauthenticity leads to subconscious worthlessness, and subconscious worthlessness leads to mirror connections. Bruh, I came up with that on my own. Okay? So I'm excited about this one. This is what we're going to talk about. We're going to get into it. How does you trying to be perfect and you really showing up inauthentically connect to lack mindset, which then connects to who and what you're calling into your life when it comes to your connections? Well, let me tell you. When we are thinking about relationships and connections, we're too busy thinking about it from such a surface level that we don't actually realize what is deriving these relationships to come towards us. What part of us is actually attracting who it is that we attract into our lives? I've said it before, I'm going to say it again. You don't really attract what you actually want. You attract who you are and you attract what you believe. So the people that are coming into your life, the energies that you're experiencing have everything to do with what you feel, what you believe, and where your mind is. And a lot of times, the reason why we're so stuck in feeling like we're lacking, feeling like we're worthless, feeling like, we're not good enough, always trying to figure out how we can become our better selves, usually has to do with the fact that we live most of our lives being so incredibly inauthentic. Like, your most authentic self is probably by yourself in the room with the doors closed. Even when you have certain connections that you feel like you're yourself with, which we'll talk about in a minute, a lot of times we don't actually experience being 100% ourselves, truly ourselves, until we're by ourselves. And that to me is both a beautiful thing and such a problem. And the reason why to me it's a problem is because we're entering these relationships with people without being our true selves. They're entering relationships with us without being their true selves, which means it's just a whole bunch of inauthenticity that's happening here, which then we're aligning with one another, not off of like the truth, not off of like what we genuinely know about ourselves and genuinely want from each other, but off of this like surface level. This is what I've been conditioned to believe I'm supposed to want, and this is how life and love is supposed to look. And kudos to those who enter connections off of their truth. Kudos to people who genuinely show up authentically themselves. Usually those people are the ones that we look at, we think they're weird, we think that they're so incredibly different that we don't fully understand them. I like those people. I like the unique ones, okay? But I also too, even as I like them, sometimes when there's too different for me, sometimes when I don't see, like I don't fully understand them, it is weird to me. It's like, how can you show up just not caring, right? And I know a lot of us, we will swear that we don't care, but we care. We care. Okay, we care what people think about us. We care about what, is being said. We don't want to be made to feel embarrassed, or, we don't want to be ashamed of who we are, right? And a lot of us are walking around ashamed. And then we enter relationships feeling worthless, feeling low, feeling like, having the worst insecurities sometimes, and then hoping and wanting the other person to pour into us and make us feel better, which is a recipe for disaster. Because if you don't like you, why would you expect other people to like you? Like, why would you put that kind of pressure on someone else if you yourself can't sell yourself to someone? And I don't mean like having to actually go to them and tell them, like, this is who I am and this is why you should like me. But if you yourself wouldn't recommend yourself to someone because you don't like you, to expect someone else to come in and fulfill your job is preposterous. And we've all done it at one point or another. But this is one of the biggest issues here. We are conditioned to show up in this world a very specific kind of way. And depending on your culture, your background, where you were raised, what family you were born into, there are certain expectations of you that go against who you actually are. Then you have society that says, when it comes to meeting people, you must make a good first impression. For a long time, I've believed in that. I believed in making a good first impression. Like, if you knew me back then, like, I was styling on them. I was doing everything that I possibly could to look as good as I possibly can. Okay. And it was, I didn't do a lot of makeup, but I did makeup. Don't play these games, right? I wore my wigs. I did whatever it is that I needed to do to look good. At any job, I was usually top notch with being, dressed and stuff like that. Like, I love to dress up. I still do, right? But it's one of those things where I learned at a very young age how important it is to look good. And even till this day, when you're talking to people, when you're hearing different podcasts talk, looking good and how you present yourself is so incredibly important, right? Because people statistically are more interested in you, and you can make more money when you dress the part, when you look the part, because we as a society have grown to judge one another based off of surface level things, because that's all we care to get to is the surface. We only care to see the surface in one another instead of actually like looking at each other for who we are, our genuine gifts and talents, despite what we're wearing, how we look, and how we show up, in a first impression. I don't know about you, but there are people who have definitely met me when I was having a bad day and just wasn't interested in connecting with people. My first impression to them may be that I am just so incredibly quiet and I don't really have much to talk about, and, I'm boring. All of which are just so not true and literally couldn't be further from the truth, but that is going to be their first impression of me. And we have two choices with that. We can either take that in, right? We can decide that we're going to see somebody and we're going to automatically judge them, or we can decide that we're going to allow ourselves to get to know their character and see who they are, right? And so I've been right and I've been wrong about a lot of first impressions that I've had. I, usually, like, with my intuitive insight and gifts and things of that sort, I can look at someone and kind of already tell what's going on with them. But that's because, and I realized as I have enhanced in my intuitive gifts, when I look at people, I realize I'm not looking at them on the surface. I would actually like do this thing where I can see someone and know who they are, right? And even then, I still have to be flexible and open. But I'll see somebody and I'll know exactly what's going on, know exactly who they are. And the one thing that I realized is I had two judgments. I had my ego's judgment and then I had my soul's judgment. And my soul's judgment was always more compassionate and always more open and always deeper, right? So my ego's judgment, I would automatically look at somebody and just be like, oh yeah, they're rude. They're rude and they're mean. Like, it's a no for me. And I wouldn't be wrong. Even if they show up being so smiley, so joyful, so all those things, I'm like, they're rude and they're mean and they're an asshole. So yeah, stay away, right? But something started to happen where I started to see people from a soul's perspective. I stopped really looking at, who they are on a surface. And I said, okay, let me look at their soul. And as I'm looking at their soul, I'm like, oh my God, okay, I see why this person is mean. I see why this person is the way that they are. I don't have to subject myself to a relationship and a connection with them because they have a lot to work on, or they have a lot to heal, or they have a lot to change, but I can see them, right? Truly see them, not just for the surface. And I think the problem that we have in relationships today is that we're so obsessed with what things look like that we're not actually tapping into what they actually feel like and what they are actually like. And that includes ourselves, right? I believe that our insecurities as a society is through the roof because we don't actually have permission to be ourselves in society, right? Being yourself is crazy. It's an anomaly. It's like, why are you doing that? Why are you being authentically yourself? Why are you speaking your mind when it goes against what everybody else agrees with? Why are you wearing clothes that nobody else would ever wear? Why are you operating in a way that nobody else would ever operate in public, right? And so there are so many stipulations, so many opinions of what's right and what's wrong, what's acceptable, what's not. Everyone has an opinion about everything. And we do this thing where we take the opinions of others because naturally we all want to cooperate with one another. We take the opinions of others and then we swallow them, we take them in, identify with them, and then we switch ourselves depending on what is being said and what is fully accepted. All of us want to be accepted one way or another. And I think that this is what causes a lot of insecurities. If society is saying that, women are not acceptable or don't look good when they wear baggy pants, and literally you love wearing baggy pants, you're more likely to be inauthentic in public and not wear baggy pants in public, putting on your cute dresses and skirts and things of that sort just to satisfy the outside world. Meanwhile, when you're inside, you love putting on those sweats, you love putting on baggy pants, you love doing certain things, right? If you're a man and you're told by society that you're not allowed to be emotional, you're not allowed to tap into your feelings at all. Meanwhile, you're naturally a sensitive person, naturally emotional, naturally intuitive, and in tune with your emotions. You then go out into the world and you hide that part of you. So now you are trying to be as macho as you need to be in order for society to accept you. And the biggest issue with that is that you now have entered society and people are meeting you on a false basis. It's not who you truly are. And what we do is we say, I'll show who I truly am to those who get close to me, right? I'm not an open book, right? I like to be closed off. I like to know that I can trust you. But the issue is that we want to trust others, but we literally have created a society where we don't even trust ourselves to be ourselves. Like, we're not allowed to be ourselves, right? And of course we have free will, so you have those who go against that. But the truth is we're not allowed to be ourselves. We're not allowed to show up authentically and show up in our natural imperfections, right? Because perfect is not even a real thing, which we talk about, I believe, in episode 3. But perfect doesn't actually exist. It's not something that we can truly measure. And if it is something you can measure, it is up to interpretation. So it's one of those things where it's like, we're constantly hiding our imperfections. And because we're hiding our imperfections, because we're hiding the parts of us that we don't believe society will accept, we show up inauthentic. Even if we are as authentic as possible, right? I'm not saying that you're so fake. It's just, even in your inauthenticity, you still don't believe that you can show up and be a certain kind of version of you when you're in front of people, when you're meeting someone, when you're connecting with someone. That's why it's so incredibly refreshing to meet somebody who is just so quirky and themselves. It's like, oh my gosh, I've just never met someone like you. You're just intrigued. Whether you like the person or not, you are intrigued. You have to stare. You're looking at them like, whoa, right? When you see a celebrity, a person, an influencer, anybody who is just so different, whether you agree with what's being said, whether you agree with how they look, whether you're interested in how they do what they do, you're literally locked in. And you're locked in because of one reason and one reason only. They're being themselves. Or at least they're showing up differently from what society allows them to show up as, or what society says is okay. And that's intriguing to us. Like, we like that stuff. Even if society hates somebody, right? Like literally is coming down on somebody, that's when we're more tuned in. Because to see that so many people are coming down on one person who still decides to show up as themselves, to say what they need to say, whether it is authentic or not, the idea that someone is going against society is intriguing to us. We don't want to admit that though. We'll tell ourselves that we're only locked in because, we just want to know the tea and da, 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 da. No, we're locked in because there's a part of us that also would go against society too. There's a part of us, the authentic us, that doesn't necessarily agree with what everything, with everybody and what everything is being said in society, but we still follow suit. We still show up a certain way. Inauthentically, we are showing up every single day, and all we want is to be authentically ourselves, right? And because we're so inauthentic, because we think we have to show up a certain way to the point where we don't even realize who we are, because this is just the norm to kind of be inauthentic, we start to develop a subconscious worthlessness, a subconscious state of lack, a subconscious belief that we're not good enough. Because truly, you don't actually feel good enough until you're like fulfilled within yourself, like truly fulfilled within yourself, within who you are. Like you're not going to feel good enough until you actually feel good with who you are without all the extra stuff, without the looks, without serving any of the looks, right? Without, the certain people you have around you, without the money, without the material stuff, without the things that on the surface make you fantastic and amazing, without all the accolades, right? There's a part of you that starts to develop this subconscious worthlessness, constantly in this place of proving. Hence the question, what do you bring to the table? Now, this is what we're asking each other. And again, that question isn't allowing us to actually like get deep with one another. That question is just simply saying, like, can you add value to my life? And the value we're talking about usually is financial, right? Maybe a little bit emotional, a little bit of, okay, cool, what am I going to get out of this relationship? And again, it's all about getting something out of the relationship, out of the connection. But naturally, every connection we come into connection with is always going to give us something, always going to teach us something, always happening because it starts with us. We called it into our lives for a reason. But when you are in the subconscious place of feeling a little worthless, or you have these insecurities that have grown, but you don't even realize that these insecurities are there, you start to attract mirrored connections. People who also are showing up inauthentic, people who are also showing up a certain kind of way because they believe this is how they're meant to show up. They believe this is what society will allow. And that's some of the biggest issues that we're seeing in relationships today. What you bring to the table, when we ask that question, when we're talking to someone, we shouldn't just worry about what they bring surface to the table. What energy are you bringing to the table, right? What trauma do you bring to the table? What issues do you bring to the table? What imperfections do you bring to the table? Who are you, right? We think that relationships don't work out because of money issues. Relationships don't work out because most of us don't actually know each other at our worst. We only know each other at our best. So now when things go down, when things get low, when things aren't the best, that is why people believe that it's through the drama we understand how strong a connection is. And I think that can be both powerful and toxic depending on the situation. But it's one of those things where you will receive mirrored connections based off of how you truly feel about yourself. And if you're hiding such big parts of yourself, you're hiding your truth all the time because you need to show up a certain way, you're gonna end up with people who are hiding themselves, which that looks like deceit, lying, things of that sort, that are hiding you. Again, more deceit, cheating, things of that sort. Or even connections that just don't really show up the way that you need to. They may present one thing and then change later, right? And we have made that a norm in relationships. Don't show up, don't show a man fully who you are, don't show a woman fully what you got, right? And wait for you guys to hit a certain level in order for you guys to truly go all the way. Then this brings up a whole nother thing. When we do come into contact with someone who feels familiar and someone who feels like home, someone who you're like, whoa, I've never been able to be 100% myself like this with, that's when we get in trouble sometimes. right? Because there is the soulmate that is like so amazing and like it's meant to feel this way. And then there are the karmics that aren't necessarily for you. But the reason why you're so drawn to them is because they feel like home, which a lot of times that can mean that it's a past life situation. They feel like home because they're literally about to mirror to you exactly who you are and make sure that you grow out of it. Whatever issues that are showing up within you, they feel like home. You feel like you being yourself is enough for the relationship, so you don't actually require more. Because truthfully, that's what we're looking for, a level of safety to be our true selves. And so we look for other people to mirror back the safety we need within ourselves. We don't feel safe enough to be ourselves. So therefore, we look for others to make us feel safe. And the problem with that is that's when manipulation can happen. That's when we connect with the wrong ones. That's when we connect with people who will mirror back to us, hey, yo, you need to provide this for yourself. Because the more you're looking for other people to make you feel safe, it's actually going to mirror back to you how you don't feel safe being you, how being you is actually the problem. And again, that's not going to be everyone's story, but this is something that we need to think through. Lack tends to mirror back to us through our connections. And when we're asking ourselves, why do I keep experiencing the same person, the same energies, the same situations? Well, you may switch the person out, but do you change your mindset? Do you actually know what you got going on subconsciously? Are you being 100% authentic with yourself? Do you understand your own traumas, problems, and issues within yourself that you realize or need to realize that you're calling into your life? These are things we got to think about, booba. These are things we got to realize we're doing on a regular basis. Every single relationship, every single connection brings something to the table, and it's going to be valuable to your life one way or another. Whether it brings you down so that you can see something clearly or it shoots you up. Either way, there's value in every connection because there's so many people in this world that you will never connect with. That's for a reason. They're not going to bring anything to you. There are people in this world you will never see, never hear of, never know existed throughout your entire lifetime. You know what I mean? But the people that you do connect with, every single one of them, it's not about what they can physically bring to your relationship. It's who are you? Who are you? And what part of me is calling you in, right? Look at your insecurities and imperfections and decide to love yourself through them. Decide you're going to be authentic with every single connection that comes your way, that you're not going to wait for them to know you for you to be yourself. And again, I'm not saying you have to divulge every trauma and problem and issue in the first conversation. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, if you knew what you were getting into and people knew what they were getting into with the person they were dealing with, and we all decided to get to know each other, not just on a surface level, but also on an energetic level and an emotional level, we'd be more equipped to understand what it is that we're dealing with, who it is that we're connecting with. I'm saying have those types of conversations, have the deeper conversations. What do you value? What's the hardest thing that you've experienced in your life? And then answer it authentically. Where are you at in your life right now? Don't try to paint a pretty picture. Paint the real picture. Here's where I'm at in my life right now. I'm in a place right now where I am doing okay, but I'm struggling emotionally. I am going through it mentally a little bit because I've been through a lot in my life and it's all just kind of coming up. But I am determined to overcome. However, I haven't taken any steps to overcome it. That type of honesty, that type of truth, we don't want to have it because we assume we're going to be rejected. And a lot of times we've created a society where we do get rejected. But your people, right? The people that truly connect with you, they're going to feel something energetically if we start opening up in this way. They're going to feel, instead of putting you down, they're going to feel like, oh my gosh, like I can relate to that. As a matter of fact, I too have just experienced this or am experiencing this, or I have a friend that's experiencing this, right? Or I'm actually very good with the mental health sector. I have like 3 connections in the mental health sector that could help you. I would love to connect y'all. Making these authentic connections with people, platonic, romantic, professional, truly starts to open us up and allows us to kind of get rid of our insecurities. We tend to be insecure not because of what we think of ourselves, but because of what we think other people will think of us. Then that comes back to how you think of you. A lot of times, the insecurities that I would look at within myself, I'd realize, okay, like, yeah, this is what I think. Like, for example, one of my biggest insecurities for a long time was my feet. Not anymore, but it was before. And so it was one of those things where, like, I would want to hide my toes. I wouldn't want to show my feet, like I hated people looking down. I didn't want people to look at my shoes, anything like that. And it was a huge insecurity of mine. And so I would assume that everybody thinks that my feet is huge. Like, everyone is looking at my feet. They think it's huge. As a kid, I didn't really have, shoes. My parents and stuff, they didn't really take care of me in terms of like new shoes and stuff. They took care of me, but they couldn't buy new shoes. They couldn't take care of like the new shoe need and want, right? And so I literally would like, be wearing the same shoe every single day, no matter what. And I never felt embarrassed. I never felt any type of way. I just put on the shoe and I move on, right? Like, I'm a kid, I don't care. My mother, my family would constantly talk about how big my feet are and how it's so hard to find shoes. Then I went to school one day and I got made fun of for wearing the same shoes that I was wearing last year, right? And all of a sudden I have this insecurities about my feet. And now I think my feet are so big, so huge. I started believing that I can't find shoes, that every single store I went to, they never had my size. I always struggled to find shoes, right? And then I just didn't want people to see my feet. So if I was dating a guy, I wouldn't want to take off my shoe. I wouldn't want to sleep over. I wouldn't want anything because I'm just like, oh, I don't want you to see my feet. And then I looked back at it and I'm like, yes, these are my thoughts. I'm thinking these thoughts. But then I went even further. I said, where did these thoughts derive from? And they derive from other people's opinion. I never had an issue with my feet. I never seen anything wrong with it. Even when I was trying on shoes as a kid, I wasn't looking at it as I can't find my size or my feet are too big. They don't have my size. I blamed the store. I was like, well, they should probably get more inventory. What are we talking about? Right? In my head, my feet were never the problem until someone made it the problem. And when they made it the problem, I then believed them because now the universe started showing me that that's true. It's true. You can't really find shoes, but your sisters can. It's true, you are the one with the biggest feet. It's true, you are young and yet you're wearing adult shoes. It's true, you don't shop at the kids. So now I'm believing the opinions of other people. And so it became an insecurity of mine until I decided, F it. What am I making this an insecurity for? Why am I walking around as if my feet are a problem? I don't actually think that. So I started walking around. I started repping the fact that I have big feet. That sometimes finding shoes isn't the easiest. Then I started believing, you know what? I throw that away. I find shoes with ease. Ever since I started believing I find shoes with ease, I started walking into places that always had my size, no matter what. Even if I didn't like the shoe, they always had my size. I could find shoes with ease. I started going into places that aligned with that. I started connecting with people even that also had big feet and also understood what I was going through. Then I started connecting with people that were models that were like, oh yeah, having big feet in the model community is so incredibly important. Boop, 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 boop. I started connecting with dancers who also had big feet. And I was like, oh shit, is that what it is? Because I'm a dancer. Is that the whole trajectory of it started to change? And part of that is because I got real with myself. I decided I'm going to be authentic. Forget the opinions of others. Forget what I've been told. Forget what I've been conditioned to believe. I'm going to believe otherwise. While everybody else hates big feet and talks bad about it, I'm going to talk about it like it's a good thing. So now when I was made fun of for having big feet, I'm just like, yeah, and they hold me up well. My foundation is set. I am a dancer. Stop playing with me. Yes, that's why I'm such a good dancer, because my feet is so big. Are you kidding? I started taking it as like a beautiful thing. And although it wasn't the norm at the time, being young, having big feet was actually something that people were like, oh my God. It was like just as, difficult or just as much of a problem as being overweight, right? I decided to embrace it. The exact thing that I looked at as an insecurity, I said, you know what? I'm going to just love it. I'm going to love it. I'm going to wear it out. I'm going to show up. And that's my truth. My truth is I do love it. I ain't never had a problem. And I got real about that. So now within my connections, I'm connecting to people who are also real about their feet, who also have their own stories, who also embrace it, instead of people who are consistently pointing out how my feet are a problem. That is what we do in our connections. Because we show up inauthentically and we believe what society is thinking, we believe we know everything that society is saying is our truth, right? Or let me say that better. We believe that society's opinion of something is our truth. When we believe that, we end up in situations where it's constantly being reflected back to us, constantly being mirrored back to us, constantly reminding us, by the way, this is your belief. Until you change that. And the only way to change that is to get authentic. Because like I said, hiding your imperfections lead to inauthenticity. And inauthenticity leads to subconscious worthlessness. And subconscious worthlessness leads to mirrored connections. If you subconsciously or consciously have an insecurity, an imperfection that you just, you want to hide from everyone, secrets you want to hide from everyone, parts of you that you're hiding from everyone, naturally, you're not going to feel worthy enough. Naturally, you're always going to be chasing the highs, the connections, and the things that are going to make you feel fulfilled and worthy. You're going to be doing things outside of yourself that don't align with you just so that you can feel worthy. And you will always run into situations that make you feel less than worthy. And this is your opportunity to say, no more of that. I don't care for that. I don't want that anymore, because you deserve more. You deserve better. So choose to be authentic. Choose to bring you to the table, not the you that society says is okay to bring to the table. And when you look at your imperfections, this isn't to say that you look at your imperfections and all of the things that you deem are wrong with you or an issue with you, and you say, F it, everyone's just gonna have to deal with it. No, this is an opportunity for you to decide, what do you like about yourself and what do you dislike about yourself? And the things you dislike, instead of feeling ashamed, instead of hiding it, you get to decide, I'm gonna change it. I have the power to change it. I have the power to work on it. I have the power to do something about it. So that's what I'm going to do instead. That's really where you're meant to go at this point. At that point, when you decide that you're going to do something about it and you're being authentic and you're showing up as you and you're like, hey, look, I love me. And so whoever comes into my life has to love me too. You're going to start having connections mirror that back to you. They love you. They accept you. And those who don't accept you, you know how to walk away from. You know how to let go of. You're not stuck on it. No matter what, the truth has to come out because you're living your life in truth. The truth has to be at the forefront because you are being authentic with yourself. And naturally, your connections have to be authentic too. So I'm going to leave that right there. I really hope that this makes sense. Definitely want to talk about this a lot more because I do believe that our connections with one another can just be so much better, so much more genuine and long term. But we are just so afraid sometimes to show up as ourselves, or we just don't even know ourselves enough to show up as ourselves. And I want to help you do that. Okay? But until next time, I'm sending you so much love. If you are not subscribed, I don't want to tell you what to do or nothing, but you should try to subscribe. And by try, I mean just click the button and see what happens, okay? If you are subscribed, I am so incredibly grateful. Thank you for being here. Thank you for keeping up with the podcast. But talk to me, baby. Let me know how you're feeling. Let me know what you think. Let me know where your mindset is at, right? Let's talk about it. And until next time, I'm sending you mad love. Bye.